Hey there, we're Kurt and Kristen Luidhardt, and welcome to the Liberty Spenders podcast. With our deep expertise in political strategy and a passion for the politically conservative and faith-based market, we're here to guide you into tapping into this $5 trillion opportunity. Having worked on high-profile campaigns like Donald Trump's 2016 run, we're excited to share our data-driven insights and the 5 Ps process to help you authentically connect with this loyal and lucrative audience.
Join us as we explore real-world examples, reveal game-changing strategies, and provide you with the tools to accelerate your business growth in this powerful market. If you're ready to unlock the potential of the Liberty Spender audience, hit that subscribe button and let's embark on this journey together.
Hello, and welcome to the Liberty Spenders podcast. We are Kurt and Kristen Luidhardt, your hosts and co-founders of the Prosper Group, an agency that's raised over $500 million and elected over 100 members of Congress, 14 governors, 15 U.S. senators, and 1 president. And now, in addition to helping candidates get elected, we're helping your business get elected by helping you answer the question, what if you could exponentially grow your business by tapping into a unique and engaged audience we call Liberty Spenders? Now, they are politically conservative or faith-based consumers. They make up roughly 40% of the country, and they're looking to buy from businesses and brands that align with their values.
Our guest today is a big treat. It's Seth Weathers of Ultra-Right Beer. Now, before Seth was the beer magnate that he is today, Kristen and I knew him having been involved in national and state politics for over a decade. He's based in Georgia and has done almost everything on a political campaign that you can do. And he resulted in some big victories, his work resulted in some big victories there. Came to politics from a tech and business background, did some e-commerce, but why he's here with us today is because in 2023, he founded Ultra-Right Beer. I remember when this happened.
Oh, yes.
I remember the news coverage about it that led to Seth selling thousands of orders in just his first week when he launched it. Many of them in response to Bud Light's actions when they hired a transgender influencer as their new spokesperson. And now he's not just online, he's in retailers in many states from Tennessee to Georgia and West Virginia. He's working on getting even bigger deals and bigger chains. He also ships his beer to 40 states and even offers a monthly delivery program for those of you who want to partake regularly. So Seth, we're so happy to have you here.
Well, it's great to be here. That's a great introduction. Sounds like I wrote it.
Well, it was easy to write. I think what you're doing there with Ultra-Right Beer is very exciting. And it's a perfect person to have on to talk about our topic, which is how to get in touch with, market, and grow with the Liberty Spender audience. You're right on track with that mission. And, we've known you because you've been in politics for years. And I'm just kind of curious before we get into the story.
Passed against me.
Yeah.
I know when he said you've done everything in politics, I thought, well, besides run for office.
Yes.
You've at least you're smart enough. You haven't done that yet.
I don't think anybody's ready for that.
Well, these days we need people like you, but maybe you're doing God's work more by getting some good beer out there. But now that you're doing Ultra-Right Beer, I thought before we dive too deep into that, we might get into what are some of the things you think set you up for the success you're having today? What are some things you did years ago that put you in the best position to succeed, do you think?
Yeah, I think there's a bunch of things you could say. The overall is just continue trying. And when you get knocked down, this sounds very cliche, but get up and try again. You might need a little break to recover from a beating you might take out in the business world, but come back and try it again and just, keep putting things up there. As other things that I would say that helped this particular company be able to take off the way it did was I did have a decent amount of media connections, specifically in conservative media. And I developed those over years, having no idea, obviously, I'd be have a conservative beer brand going forward. And so those, I think, played a big part in getting us where we are.
Yeah. sometimes it's the little things we do that make the biggest difference, or the things we don't think are going to matter. Maybe it's daily habits. Some people I know successful in business have these really extensive morning routines. Some people are up late working. Are you kind of a morning guy, night owl? What's your deal?
Most of my life, I've been a night owl. I've tried for many years to switch that to a morning person. Having kids will help you switch that a little bit to some degree.
Yeah, preach.
But it was, right before launching the company, I would say I had a pretty regimented schedule of, consistency every day. I haven't had a lot of consistency since this company started, so it's hard to preach that. But I do my best to. I have certain things that I get done every day, or that I do every day, that I'm not going to skip. But they don't always happen at the same time every day.
Yeah, Kristen would say, "I'm a morning guy." Mm-hmm. She's a night owl.
Which works great because, when you're building your business, or when we were first building our business, it was like, hey, we could just work round the clock, or we'd go to events and, conferences, conventions, political events, whatever, to meet with clients or try to drum up business. And it was great. He'd go to all the early morning sessions and meetings, and I would make sure I was there for all the evening networking and everything late at night. And he turns into a pumpkin at about 8, 9 o'clock. So it worked out well for us, though.
I feel like since we had kids, I turned into a pumpkin at 7:30, but that's, I don't know what that's all about. Maybe it's also about turning 45. Who knows? What advice for someone else just getting started in business? So were there any books, articles, gurus, philosophies that you thought really helped you along the way?
I don't know that I would say there's a particular. I've consumed business books and materials and stuff like that since I was probably 14 years old, I guess. And so, I don't know that I could state one thing, but again, it kind of back to what I was saying earlier is you've always got to be trying. It's hard to say, like, don't listen to anyone, because, if I listened to anyone, I wouldn't have this company. And then there's other things that it would have been great if I'd listened to some people on some things. So lessons along the way. And, and so I like to take advice from people that have successfully done something. So your friends and family haven't always successfully done something when it comes to starting a business, or especially something that's very outside the box or whatever. And their intentions may be extremely good. But that doesn't mean you have to take that advice, and just questioning why. It's one thing, like, coming into this business is heavily regulated. There's a way it's always been done mentality in this industry. And I've received a lot of well, that's not how it's done. I'm like, why? Well, it's just not how we do it. I'm like, is it illegal? No. Well, now it's how we do it, And so I just think a lot of people, you have to kind of get outside what the norm is and find your way in. And it's a lot of persistence. I would say that, and even for us right now, it's not like it's smooth sailing. We have all kinds of hurdles we have to get through in the future. And we have a lot of people that really, really want us to fail. And so you have to, it's a lot like running a political campaign in a lot of ways.
Well, absolutely. And it's interesting when you were talking about having those relationships and not realizing at the time how helpful that would be, right, in your next endeavor. And even what you were talking, even when you mentioned reading books from a young age, that is something, right? Because you're training your mind, and I think for so many of us, and now that we're parents, I mean, we have 2 little toddlers, but realizing the impact of that, and for everything we do, all those inputs, we're training our minds, our mindset, how we want to perceive the world, how we want to respond to adversity or challenge. And so I think that's amazing. That's where that's paying off is you're feeding your mind for all that time.
Yeah. I've got an 11-year-old that's very entrepreneurial, and, there's a new business idea every week, and they're always gonna be the biggest and the best. And I don't want to squelch that either, but he is reading Rich Dad Poor Dad now. Some things.
Oh,
amazing!
I read a book about a beer industry. Sam Adams, the founding of that company, and he's reading the book. The next week later, and I don't know that he's fully understanding and consuming all that, but it would have been a great head start if I had read those things when I was 11. I'm sure too.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and then reread it, every 5 years or something to
Yeah.
remind yourself. But I love it, and any business owner who's listening will appreciate this. But as Kurt said, we were really excited to talk to you because it's just been awesome to see your success, and you're a giant success in this space. And I know you've surpassed $1 million in sales, and like we said, we hate the word instant success, right? People always say that. It's like, oh, it just clicked for him. It was so easy, him or her or whoever. And we know that nothing is really instant or overnight. It's usually, that's just what gets noticed.
There's
But
a
it does
trail
feel
of
like,
former LLCs to prove this was not an instant overnight.
exactly. It's like, well, how many businesses were you trying to do before this, right? And we understand that. And there's a reason why there's cliches like, you always get back up or whatever that exact phrase
Right.
is. There's a reason why those are there. It's because they're true.
Yeah.
So had you been planning, starting this business for a while, or was it really just a moment of inspiration? Because again, it did have success right away. The timing was perfect. So I'm curious about that.
Right. And so it was a situation where obviously, again, I come from a political consulting background. After that, I did briefly for a while have a online, like a conservative apparel and merchandise type company. And so it's a space I've obviously always been interested in. And I am furious about what I see going on in the country. What I see going on in the schools is enough to get me probably banned from your podcast ever again if I got too deep into that. And just a lot of these things, what you see in the quote unquote justice system, et cetera. And these are all things that could be fixable by conservatives if we voted in primaries and things like that. And so one thing, seeing what Bud Light did with whatever mess that situation in the bathtub was, and I'm watching this and I'm like, there's no, like, this is Bud Light drinkers. This is not the brand to do that with, and I'm watching this and I was like, this might be a cultural moment. I think this one's it. Because I've said this forever, because we've done all this stuff, like conservatives get mad. We skip a couple of NFL games and, we protest it, whatever. But those corporations, they know we're weak and we're going to come running right back to the stands 2 weeks or 2 months later, buying their overpriced sodas and sitting in the stands watching football and forget about it and move on. But I knew this one would be different. I was like, people might be angry enough and we just had enough to say, this is it. And so it got me thinking like, I'd love to have an alternative for these people and to turn this into something good. So like our company, we give back a portion of all our proceeds we give to conservative causes. We fully funded a school board race through the 1776 project last year. We gave about $100,000. We gave $100,000 to the Georgia Trump electors defense thing between the Georgia GOP and the David Schaefer Fund, the Fannie Willis trials in Atlanta to defend people there. And so those kinds of things, having a company that can give to those causes. Left wing, all these big corporations, they're all left wing. They really are. And they take our money and then we pay them, we get the good or service, and they take our money and then they donate to these organizations that oppose everything we believe in. And then they spend their money fighting and opposing the things we care about and believe in every day. All these corporations do this. And so I thought, why don't we be just as political? Everyone says like, well, you don't want your beer to be political. You don't. Too bad. It all is. They just don't talk about it necessarily as much in the public, but they're doing tremendously bad things with your money. And I know I'm kind of all over the place here, but and so I saw this as an opportunity for something that people are I've always thought I wanted a consumable, and here's one, beer. And it's an opportunity to take something if you're already buying beer, you're already drinking beer, why not give it to a company that if we're going to do partisan things with your money, at least let it be partisan things you agree with. And so that's kind of how we came about. And when I saw it happen, I knew I had to act quick. I was like, there's a million of me's sitting out here right now saying I want, a quote unquote conservative Bud Light. And I knew there was people that would, try to do it, but they're not willing to go all the way. They're going to put a flag on a can and say, we love freedom, but, we're not going to tell you what we think about teaching tranny stuff in schools to children. We're not going to enter those. I knew there was going to be the weak versions of it out there. And so I wasn't worried about that, but I knew there would be some others. And so we just got to work, and, that Bud Light debacle, hilariously enough, came out on April Fool's Day, April 1st. And we launched on April 12th, which is kind of wild. That was a very, there's no organized schedule in that period of time. I can tell you that.
Yeah. Well, and that answers it. And, you're saying, oh, I'm all over the place, but no, it's the passion. And that's what I think has been fueling your success is people understand that. They understand this authenticity that just pours out of you. And people either connect or they don't. Right.
Yeah, they love me or hate me.
But that's true for you.
Hate me, though.
Yeah.
But that's true. And so that flows for me. That's very clear. And it's one of the things we talk about with people with this effort in Liberty Spenders is people are craving that authenticity, that values alignment. They want to buy from brands who they feel like aren't hostile to them.
Right.
And it's not even, to your point, it's not even that you necessarily would have to go, and be really on the nose with all of your marketing and messaging. It's just, we just don't want to feel like we're being worked against, right? Or we're giving our money like against our interest, right? Undermined.
Used and abused by corporate overlords.
Yeah. So you launched on the 12th, sold a bunch of beer quick. That solves one problem.
We sold it as a pre-order because obviously you can't make beer that quick. And, and look, there was the amount of ups and downs through all that kind of stuff. We had a brewery that had agreed to do it. And, they're big, solid conservatives and love Jesus until Newsweek called them and said, are you making this bigoted guy's beer in Georgia? And they're like, oh, this guy, no. They denied me 3 times before dawn. I only say that because they're such good Christians. They let everyone know. But anyway, so they were not prepared to take a stance on that. I wish I could remember the name of their company right now because I would love to say it. But anyway, so we got canceled with our initial brewery. We did find a brewery that was willing to make our bigoted beer. And that allowed us to get launched, a late launch, obviously. We went through the whole issue of people being upset, getting late orders. It's not the first time that's happened with us. Hopefully it is the last time at this point. A lot of growing pains in this process. And so I forget the original question. I got off on all that, but.
Yeah. Oh, no, but it just sounds like smooth sailing, basically, is what you're telling us.
Sounds like an entrepreneurial journey. And I think it's fascinating, right? I mean, if you're in any space, alcohol is not exactly the most straightforward business to just jump into.
Well,
right?
it's not a welcoming industry. That may come as a surprise to some. We essentially have the alcohol laws that we have now, from the mob that helped, once they realized there was actually going to be legislation and, they heavily influenced the alcohol rules we have. And so in most states, pretty much all states, there's multiple things you have to do. One of which is you have to find, I'm going to make so many people mad on this situation right now. You have to find some boss hog that you have to suck up to and ask him to the honor of selling your beer. I don't do very well with that mentality. So there's been a little bit of, there's been some bumps, but we're getting through that. But again, just the regulation is just, it's truly criminal what goes on. And it's done by our Republicans in most states that I live in. So,
look, I've been in politics for years. I certainly recognize the beer wholesalers, distributors. They're big political contributors.
Oh, yes, they are.
All over the country to both parties.
Yeah.
Right. And it reminds me of a story about our business. We wanted to provide website development for members of Congress on the official side, paid for by the U.S. House.
We were so young and foolish then. We were so young.
It took us 10 months and an act of God, a threatening call from a member of Congress to get approved to do that. And we hated the whole process, complained about it the whole way. But once we were on the other side of the firewall, that awful bureaucratic process protected us.
And competition is like,
and I thought,
all right, let's go.
Sometimes the reason people want a lot of rules is it keeps competition out of the game.
That is exactly what it is with the beer industry, 100%.
Yeah.
What was
human greed takes over, and sometimes your principles that you have said you care about, like the free market and all of those things kind of get pushed a little bit.
So what would you say was your biggest challenge? Was it kind of dealing with the regulatory environment or finding the right vendors? What would you say?
Some of that, obviously, we do have a lawyers that handle all of that for us now, which is much better. That should not be anything I'm in control of. But as to that, we've had, hurdles. I mean, obviously, one of the biggest hurdles we had was we launched a Trump limited edition can, Trump Mugshot beer that went absolutely bonkers wild. Sold more of that than we could. We had production issues. It was a pre-order. Again, similar situation. We sold many of them in such a short period of time that, beer you don't just pour liquid in a can. You got to ferment. It's a process. And then you got to get the cans made. And then all these people are behind, canning. You got to go all over the country to find sourcing to get cans done quick enough, et cetera. So we've had a lot of issues with that, a lot of angry people about that. And so, going through that, this is the part people don't want. People just want to hear like, oh, it's just all fun. Money's been pouring in everywhere. No call. I mean, we sent out, I don't have the full exact numbers on this, but so people that were so angry at us, and, the company started with me.
Right.
And, we've since been hiring people, and we have customer support people. We have 2 customer support people now. We originally had half of one, and then, went full time. And anyway, and so I wasn't able to respond to this many emails all the time. So I'm just out there trying to get the beer produced, do that. And you got people getting angry because they haven't heard back from you and their beer's not there yet. So we had people, I don't know how much you know about chargebacks online with their credit.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
So they filed chargebacks against saying, this is a fraud and all this. And then people go crazy online. And there's people screaming, this guy's a fraud. This is all a scam. It's all, I'm like, yes, that has been my entire process the whole time. So publicly put myself out here to scam you of a beer.
In a bunch of national news media, everyone knows where to find me. Right.
Yeah. And so, we had people write the Better Business Bureau. We have my local news station here in Atlanta show up. He hates me from political stuff in the past. And so he shows up to do the expose of the fraudulent beer thing. And I'm like, well, the thing is we offered everyone refunds if they didn't. I was like, if you don't want to wait, you can get a refund, full refund, no questions asked, whatever. But even with the chargebacks for the first while, when we were getting chargebacks from these people, like I hate our customers being mad at us. I hate even more of them thinking like, oh, this isn't what it, made it out to be, because I feel like I'm as passionate as anyone could ever find in the conservative space, cause wise. And so for the first, we spent about $250,000 sending out beer to people that had filed a chargeback, gotten their money back, and we still sent them the beer for free. And we spent over $250,000 doing that. I like to think karma comes around and, plays out and wins in the end. I don't know if it will or won't in that, it's funny how people respond. And, some people are obviously very grateful. And then you just get a lot of people like, well, it's too late now. I'm like, okay, well, you got free beer. So,
Yeah. Well, and going above and beyond for customers and to showcase that is an important, that your integrity is important. That's never a bad idea, right? That's never a bad thing to do.
Playing the long game on that. Short term, it has not been, maybe the best decision, because again, a lot of people conservatives want to buy from conservative brands if it's this shiny thing right in front of them at the moment, keeping them excited. But keep in mind, these are people that also will not vote in Republican primaries, which is why we have so many of the horrible elected Republicans around the country. And they come from the deepest red states, oftentimes. I'm not mentioning Lindsey Graham here, but I would if I was going to mention someone. Hopefully he's not climbing eagles. I got to be careful of the names. But anyway.
No, he's not.
Okay. And so, you deal with that a little bit. So it's an interesting journey, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, I've had those times. We've now been in business almost 20 years, and we have all sorts of processes and bureaucracy in place that people who come to us 15 years later don't realize why it's there. And every once in a while I have to explain, there is this tracking process we do of every dollar. Why? Because it was a really embarrassing once to have gotten money from a client to spend on advertising and then somehow not get the ad dollars placed. Now we have processes, but sometimes you don't know what you got to have until it kind of goes belly up. And not every, and it's hard to prepare ahead of time for
you have no idea what it is to prepare for, especially when you enter a new venture like this. I think the greatest asset I had going into the beer business is not knowing anything about the beer business. And the biggest weakness I had going into the beer business was not knowing anything about the beer business.
Mhm.
So,
Yeah, it allows you to be curious,
Yeah.
open-minded, resourceful.
Right.
But sure, you don't know what you don't know, so you can find that out too.
Yeah, tell me a little bit now that you've launched, you're continually getting better, kind of figuring out your processes. What's the big project you're working on for Ultra Right Beer now? You know, is it getting into retailers? Is it expanding your online sales? What's the goal?
A couple of things. We just launched 2 days ago the ability for people to have a subscription product, so you can get your case of beer delivered to your house every month. So regardless of what retailer chooses or chooses not to carry the big bag conservative beer, you can still get it delivered and bypass those corporations.
Yep.
And so that's something that we're going to focus a lot on this year as well. A major chain in certain places. We have not launched in Florida. We've kind of had the ability to do it, but we're waiting till we have a major chain because we've just learned that is the key to these rollouts. And you've got to be able to say, hey, we're in every X store, whatever it is, whether it's a major convenience chain or a major grocer. And you kind of need that to do the distribution right. So we're working on signing one of those and going down that path. And then the secret project, I'll go ahead and tell you I'm working on, because I think you said this is going to come out later anyway. We're actually working on a light beer, because our beer currently is a full lager. It's on the lighter side, so it's not heavy. But there's light beer is the number one selling beer when we got into this. And, here's a funny thing. I thought I was creating a light beer when I created the first beer. That's how little I knew going into this. Like, this is a light beer as we're tasting and doing different things. But technically it's not. So we're doing a true light beer because there's a ton of requests for that. That's the biggest thing we hear from people, is they also want the light beer option.
Yeah, well, you could maybe do a cool name. Could you have Ultra Right Light Beer?
It sounds like Rhino beer. I don't know. It sounds like light conservative. I'm struggling with that one, actually. So we're looking at some different name options, and I don't think I can do the Ultra Right Light. It just sounds.
Yeah. I do like the idea of something with a little bit of a fun political name. Like, it's a little bit. Rhino might get you have some problems with customers who don't want to be seen with it.
Oh, no, I don't want Rhino beer. No, I'm not doing that.
But it does have kind of a fun. That's the kind of thing our customers would think was funny.
Yeah.
I definitely think.
And we're trying to have fun with it and bring fun back to the industry, which is something I see or a lack of so much in this industry now. I read these books about the beer industry, how it came about, how some of these companies really grew to prominence in the 80s and 90s, or depending on the company, whenever it was. They were having fun. And now it's just such a bureaucratic corporate mindset from these people. Everyone's like little drones. No one can have any fun, and it's just overly regulated. And so we're trying to change that up a little bit.
Yeah, well, we need that in life.
Yeah, I agree.
In general, right? I mean, we're also serious. I know that so much is happening in our country that may make us feel like we got to be that way, but sometimes just lightening up is a good solution.
And you can do both. You can have fun and have light, have fun with things, and also know, there's important things that have to change and be focused on. And that's something that I feel like we're kind of trying to do both, and that's one of the things of supporting the organizations that we're supporting. They're out there doing the dirty work and fighting in these school board races, which have become wildly different than they were 10 years ago. That's for sure. In school board.
Yeah.
And you're getting, but, we're seeing, money from, they sent me the race that, I guess our money went to or whatever last year, just recently. And I was looking over some of the stuff and seeing this person that they defeated in that school board race. And it's like, you really feel good when you see something like that. And, we did it out here having fun and, drinking a little beer.
Yeah. Well, and I know that you're just touching on I was thinking about something else to ask you is, of course, you're the builder of this new brand, this new business, and you've mentioned about, your passion for the movement, for the Patriot economy and all that entails. What is most exciting to you about where this movement's going right now?
I think people are becoming emboldened, and that's one thing that kind of the way I was with the apparel business, and even with this the beer brand now is helping embolden other people to not be afraid to say, because there's so many people that are conservative. There's so many people that know it's absolutely insane, lunacy and sick, this books that are being put in schools, but they're afraid to say anything because they're afraid to say something to their coworker. Maybe they'll disagree. Well, I don't care, and more people need to not care, because the reality is the vast majority of us, we do know these things deep down, whether they're willing to say it or not. And it's like something I've noticed, like, when someone, goes into a bar and they drink a beer out of this can, people quickly understand you're making a statement to a degree as well. It's great beer, but you're also, clearly identifying your belief system there. And other people see that. And, I've noticed this even on like college campuses. We've done a lot here in Athens, Georgia, UGA college, and launching some of the bars and stuff down there, which, by the way, everyone told me you couldn't do. It's, Athens is liberal, blah, blah, blah. You'll never we go in there, the kids are going wild on it and yelling Trump 2024. And like, you got packed places. And it's just, but it's funny though, when one sees the other, when it's okay to say that out loud because they realize someone else is, because a lot of people need that. I've always been okay with saying all kinds of things out loud that wouldn't necessarily be agreed upon by others, but a lot of people don't feel that way. And so I think it gives it gives that encouragement. Mm-hmm. And so I like seeing that happen in the movement. And when you're out there actually witnessing that and seeing that happen, then that's exciting for me right now. And I think that there's a lot of that happening right now.
And I think what's important, and you were touching on it too, with your entrepreneurial journey and how you're learning so much about just like running that business, because of course you saw an opportunity and you just went for it, and then you were kind of building it as you went. What I think is great about this is just for people that feel passionate about this or feel like they want to have alternatives, that we're answering it in the marketplace. I feel so strongly about that. You want to talk about what Kurt and I are passionate about and why we're so excited about this effort, this podcast, what we're helping clients do, helping businesses do, is because, if you're running your business well, you're treating your employees well, you're offering a good product or service for a great price, you're caring about your customers, that's what we want. That's really what we want. And we just want to have, we want to continue to build communities and build families. And so I think, recognizing, hey, we have this passion, we care about these issues, but we have to run a good business, right? And I think for anybody who's motivated by that, to try and look for that, support businesses that are trying to make that happen. There may be, maybe there are some growing pains. It's just like, the movement to buy local.
There's always to be growing pains, regardless of industry or business, for sure.
Right. And if we want those businesses to succeed, right, we have to help them. And then we have to help them run good, give them good feedback, be patient, and help them build a strong business.
Absolutely. I know Ultra-Right Beer is a favorite brand in the Patriot economy, but who else in this space do you think is really doing it well in the sort of, conservative economy, liberty spender space?
I know there's plenty of other brands out there that's a consumable.
It can be consumable. I mean, it could.
I'm past the diaper stage with kids, so I can't think of the name of them right now. You guys will probably know.
Every Life diapers, we're buying them. They're in our house right now.
Yep, I've seen them out there. It seems like they're doing a really good job.
I agree with that. I think there's a great brand promise there. I know that every time I'm buying Every Life diapers, I'm supporting crisis pregnancies, which is something that Chris and I are really passionate about. And we were particularly shocked to find out that not only were the diaper brands we buying from not supporting women in crisis pregnancies, but many of them were donating to Planned Parenthood, which,
of course,
paying for abortions, which seems really, not only is it bothersome to me morally, but seems sort of from a business perspective, counterintuitive.
Well, think about this. You can actually be drinking an Ultra-Right beer while changing your child's diaper and still supporting pro-life causes on both sides of the spectrum. So we actually gave pro-life causes as well last year. So
there we go. There we go. Kristen has been laughing about this because I'm such a big fan of what you're doing, and I don't drink.
That's all right.
Can't comment. He can't. I mean, he's never had a beer in his life,
I I do know this though. You can go to Ultra Right Beer and buy some merch.
That
So
is
it's not
true.
just you can do more than just buy beer. And I think in the end, part of the what you're saying, if even if it's just by implication, is there's reasons that we do what we do, right? We all need to make money, support our families. We all have goals. Chris and I have always loved travel and things that motivate us to be successful in business. But it seems like there's a deeper reason, deeper passion here, obviously is contributing to the growth of your brand. But I thought as we come to a close, to talk a little bit about, what gets you out of bed every morning to do this hard work, to face all the people who like to see you fail and be a success in spite of it.
Well, the people that want to see me fail is actually a motivating factor, just for clarification on that part. That helps get out of bed a little bit too. But my kids are what really make me want to get out of bed every morning and work hard, obviously. But yes, you could not jump into a business like this, or most any business that I know of, at least, without an immense amount of passion for what you're doing, or at least what you see the overall outcome potential is. And that's something that, for me, again, seeing what's going on, like we all know the school situation is bad, but when you have kids and you start equating, okay, this is my 7-year-old, and you realize people are showing 7-year-olds the books that they're showing 7-year-olds in schools and stuff. It really it ups the level. I hate everyone always says you'll understand this once you have kids. You'll get it when you do, and they're right, and you really don't until you do in certain things. I mean, you can think and know that these things are bad and wrong, but it really changes the level of passion probably for these things. And so just seeing these things going on and knowing, hey, we can do something out there to affect those change is something that's really important to me. So I have very grand, lofty goals and in mind for the future of the company and what we do. But, one of those things is imagining us being, we've got all these corporations that are huge corporations that give all this money to causes we really oppose. Like you're just talking about the diaper companies given to pro-abortion stuff, which is just wild. But what if we had conservative companies that were not afraid to go just as extreme on our side of things in support of our values? And so I want to be that company that doesn't say, we can't really support that. It's a little like, yeah, we agree with it. I agree with you personally. I'm all with you. I'm anti-abortion, but I just can't quite give to you publicly like that because, we're going to have some, screw all that. I'm so sick of those people. They're what got us in this situation is because just being afraid and weak. But the left can go wild on everything and no one seems to bat an eye. And so, I think conservatives need to go a little bit wild too in defense of our values. So we're trying to encourage that. Maybe you need an ultra right to get up the motivation to do it or whatever it may be. So we'll motivate you one way or the other to get out there and start fighting for these causes that matter.
I know what you mean, Seth, about having kids. Kristen and I were married 15 years before we decided to start a family. And now we have a 2-year-old and a 4-year-old, and we're in a red state here in Indiana. And within that red state, we're in a red county. And even we were surprised when we went into the local library with our, at the time, 2-year-old. And in the section that she liked to grab books from, all the Disney princess books, there was a whole section about whether or not a little infant child might have been misgendered. And I thought, this is not appropriate to be putting right next to books about, Rapunzel and Cinderella.
Yeah, it was eye level down low about which bathroom to use, and show for very young children.
These people are weirdos. They're freaks, and they need to be treated like that. People get all excited and upset when I say these things, but it is the reality, and you cannot. And the normalization of that is, I think, part of what got us here. And you go the fact that it's in schools, like you're talking about in those areas and stuff. As I was saying, like communists love to weasel their way into working a government job that gets to decide what school books go into your local school. So you can have a deep red county, but the one job that they're going to seek out is they want to make sure they're pushing this crap in front of our kids. And that's the job they're going to go seek out. And Republicans and conservatives specifically, it's not even just conservative in general, we've got to be getting ahead of that game and seeking those people out and removing them from those positions. And we've got to be, I think, very aggressive about that right now.
Yeah, we definitely have to care. And this is where, my faith comes in, where I try to remember that, everyone's a child of God, and I love everyone, and I don't, but there's also evil in the world. and and so I think it's important, we have to protect innocence. We have to stand up for those things, and I can do that while also loving other people. But I'm still going to protect my children.
Well, 100%. But I think we've just gotten to a place where people are so afraid to stand up, and I think we're coming back out of that right now. Hopefully, and that's what I feel like is happening now. But there got to be a point where people just were so afraid to stand up, even for their kids, on certain issues, that they weren't willing to speak out. And again, I do think we're seeing some of that start to flip. And I mean, even younger generations, the recent high school male grads that just came out that are going into college now is like, I think the most conservative in 40 years or something like that, politically speaking, males. And so you've got, I think we reached the level of wokeness that people were like, it's maybe just too far.
Yeah. When you have Bill Maher making comments of like, what, we have jumped the shark. What is going on? This doesn't even make sense. That's when
Yeah, and he's stoned half the time too, and for him to still see things every now and then is amazing.
Yeah. Well, hey, I'm really so happy to have you on the episode, and I try to highlight a few things for folks listening. And one of the things that Seth's so good at, that I think is just a key lesson, is really understanding that there are opportunities, particularly with this set of buyers, to have success quickly if you can follow the news, understand how to take advantage of that, like he did with Bud Light, and again with the Trump beer can. I might have to buy one of those, even though I don't.
You can't anymore; they're limited. But I do believe I have a couple around here. I might save one for you.
And I think that's something that everyone should be paying attention to. To get in touch with Seth, hit him up on X or Twitter, whatever we're calling it these days, at Seth Weathers, or you can find his company at ultrarightbeer.com. I would note, I checked out ultrarightbeer.com today, and he is giving away a restored Trans Am. So definitely hit the website up. I may have to hit the website up. And if I've got to buy some beer for somebody else to make it happen, I'm in. And you can also buy merchandise there, which is
true. Any purchase gets you entered to win the vehicle, and you also don't have to buy anything. Back to these dumb regulations, but you can go enter your phone number to join our text message list, and that will also get you entered to win the car that I'm going to be very, very sad to part with here in a few months.
Yeah. Well, I can understand why. It looks pretty awesome. I was thinking if I got it though, it sort of screams that I'm having a midlife crisis.
Car seat in the back of that thing half the time, okay? But the kids love it.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Yeah, because right now my cars are just full of car seats and Cheerios. So I'm not rolling up impressing anybody these days.
No, it's a whole conversation, Seth, we can have another time when we're looking for vehicles, and he swore I'm never owning a minivan. And so we own a Lincoln Navigator because that felt okay and big enough, but still had some adult luxury, and yeah, he's been in denial this whole time.
I ruined the Lincoln Navigator though. It's right now. It's literally stuffed full of kids' toys we're taking back to donate, and it's not exactly the Matthew McConaughey luxury experience I was looking for.
I can appreciate that. I think I have a bicycle, a couple baseball bats and gear, and beer in the back of mine right now. So.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, I also want to thank you for joining. We really appreciate it, Seth, and you taking out some time and just hopefully sharing and inspiring some people with your journey and all the lessons that you've learned. And I appreciate you being so open about that too. It says a lot.
Well, I had fun with this, and it even re-inspired me to think about all the things we've managed to survive this past year. So I'm excited for the next one.
It always helps to reflect on that. And you think yourself, I've done some cool things. I've been through some things. So I always encourage that. And to our listeners, thanks for tuning in. We want to invite you to join the Liberty Partnership community at libertyspenders.com. You can learn more about how we can help you engage with this really cool and loyal audience. You can also test out our Liberty Access Multiplier AI tool there. It'll ask you a few basic questions and give you some insights to hopefully help your business. So check us out at libertyspenders.com. And thanks again for joining. Until next time.